Alrighty then. So this is the last class. Next week is finals. I know, I know. Luckily for this class, your final is the exact same format as the midterm, the 4 short essay questions, open book, all of that. And it will be due next Wednesday. Since for the Wednesday cohort, you guys get a little extra time since I posted the exam on Monday.
Wait, you said what now?
The exam is due Wednesday, a week from, yeah. No, we just, oh yeah, we have the final meeting next week, yeah. What we're gonna do is, I'll show a documentary during our class session and we'll just wrap the semester up. Since you're turning the exam in, yeah. No, just the exam that I posted online. Yeah, no, yeah. Oh, God, no, yeah, no, it's just, no.
Your exam, then I got my federal government final exam, and then I got other quiz, like exams, my law test, and then a 7-page essay from my competition class, which I'm so confused about it.
Been there.
I don't even know how to start it. I don't know where to ask me.
Who's your instructor?
Good. No, Christian.
Oh,
Richardson, yeah.
I have, but still confusing. Confusing to everyone in the class.
Fair enough. So yeah, no, this is just the same thing as the midterm, and it's due next Wednesday. Because you guys are in the Wednesday cohort, you might as well turn it in next Wednesday. If you finish ahead of time, you can just turn it in whenever, but you have a week from today for my final. Yeah, little extra time, yeah.
Also had to do for the 2 days Thanksgiving.
Oh, jeez.
I got a tackle in minutes.
Oh, no.
That's been it. So, ever since that, I had trouble breathing for a while.
Oh, yeah. So.
I'm starting to feel a bit better. I'm starting to breathe a bit more.
Sure.
It's still hard to sometimes breathe.
Yeah.
But I've been on antibiotics and stuff, and I'm starting to feel a bit better.
Good, but yeah, that sucks. No, my final is designed, it's not easy, but it's designed to be as little stress as possible for you guys. Because I know finals suck, and I don't want you guys to have a final for my class that's just terrible. So that's why I try to make it a take home, reduce the stress a little bit, give you at least one exam where you're like, okay, this is doable. It doesn't, it's not gonna make me want to pull my hair out for the most part. A little, okay. So we're gonna finish the last chapter in the book. We are going to talk about energy usage, and a bit about issues with transportation. So just kind of, yeah, wrapping up Texas altogether. So we talked last time about nuclear, natural gas, and oil. So of course it's time to talk about renewable energy. Okay. Now the biggest advantages, of course, are that they're not going to cause a lot of damage to the environment. The downside, of course, is that it is 4 times more expensive than oil, natural gas, or nuclear for solar power. So they're very expensive to produce. On the plus side, because of the size of the state and some of the high winds that we get, we do have the most wind power generation ability of any state. And we've got more than 2,000 wind turbines in West Texas. If you've ever driven along there, you've seen them, right? They're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and there's these giant wind turbines. It's kind of cool. Now, the problem with wind power, though, is that the rotors do have to be replaced. And if they fall off, that can be a problem for the other windmills. And unfortunately, they are dangerous for migrating birds. Dozens of bald eagles go into those spinning, they don't see them, so they get hit by the windmills. To try to mitigate that, what they've done is started putting lights that go off continuously on them so the birds see the lights and try to avoid them. So better than nothing, but not perfect. We're on slide number 2, Johnny. No problem. Of course, when you're going through West Texas, there isn't much of anything out there anyway, so that's why they can put the wind turbines out there. Okay. Now, solar power is potentially limitless, right? As long as we have the sun, we have solar power. We don't have a sun, well, we've got other problems. The problem with solar power, though, is the technology to convert sunlight to energy is complicated. You need a massive area of land where you can charge a bunch of cells and focus the light into those cells. So basically what you have to do is make it so the cells are exposed to sunlight, or you have a bunch of mirrors focused on the cells so they can redirect the light. So you need quite a bit of land for that to be a feasible option. Now the big thing is in Texas there is a lot of land, so it's not impossible that we could look at solar power. But it is expensive for homeowners. Solar roof panels are a little bit more efficient if you're trying to provide power for a house. But for most homeowners, they're not going to see a return on their investment for at least 3 to 5 years. So you have to put the money up first, and eventually you see the return on it. But it's expensive. Now, there have been attempts to provide a tax break if you're willing to use solar panels, maybe a reduction in property tax or a reduced cost to encourage people to install solar panels. But it's going to have to come down in price a little bit more before people are willing to do that. And because you get days where it's cloudy or there's no wind, you still have to have a backup energy supply. So you still have to be connected to an electric grid. You're not going to be able to get off electricity completely. Because you can't run a business if you have no power. So even with solar or wind, you still have to be connected to an electrical grid so you can have energy for the days it's just not windy or sunny. I don't know, my parents have said if solar ever came down in price, they'd be willing to put solar panels on the roof. It just has to get cheaper. But interestingly enough, solar isn't necessarily a new idea. President Carter put solar panels on the roof of the White House in the 1970s, and then President Reagan took them down. But we had a president who was encouraging solar power for a little bit, and if we had invested in that in the 70s, who knows, right? We could have been in a much different position if we'd done that. Yeah. Okay, so we need to look at energy efficiency as well. It doesn't help that some cars are incredibly bad in terms of gas mileage. Hummers are, first of all, a monstrosity, but second of all, extremely bad in terms of fuel efficiency. And Tesla is giving solar panels to people if they got a car from them. Yeah, that's nice, except if you can afford a Tesla, you probably don't need a discount on solar panels. But it's a great idea. I mean, I like that they're at least thinking about that, encouraging that. That's good to know. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's a nice idea. It's a nice idea. So we need, I mean, hybrid cars can get up to 45 miles a gallon, but SUVs maybe get 15. If cars had a fuel efficiency standard set at a minimum average of 35 miles a gallon, we would use millions less barrels of oil and gas prices would go down. We also need more efficiency for appliances like stoves, refrigerators, air conditioning units. All of those could be made more efficient. And we are seeing attempts to do things like create energy efficient refrigerators and things like that. For most people, they're still too expensive, but eventually maybe we'll get there. There is also an attempt to raise a gas tax. Someone said, hey, why don't we have people pay $6 to $8 a gallon for gas? That would encourage, fuel efficiency. People would use mass transit. Isn't this a great idea? Yeah, no. Well, not in general, right? I mean, there are areas where there is not mass transit. And the gas tax would just hurt poor people even more. I mean, you still have to be able to get to work. So it's not going to do any good. It's just going to hurt the people who won't be able to afford to buy gasoline. So, not a good idea. And also, fuel-efficient cars are getting better in terms of prices, but they're still not 100% there. I mean, you do pay more for a hybrid car. So all this would do is hurt poor people who can't afford a gas tax and can't afford to buy a hybrid car. So the Obama administration wanted to increase fuel economy on cars by setting an average fuel economy on cars and light trucks at 54.5 miles per gallon by 2025. That doesn't seem likely at this point. Fuel efficiency is getting better, but I don't think they're going to reach the goal of all new cars year 2025 and older or newer having that fuel efficiency. Maybe, but it's still going to be a while. And the other issue, of course, is state politicians are reluctant to force better consumption habits. The more oil people use, the better the economy is for Texas. So of course, you don't want people cutting down on consumption because that drives gas prices down. As we've seen during this pandemic, right? Gas prices are the lowest they've been in like 15, 20 years. I mean, it's great for consumers, it's terrible for the companies. But yeah, right now we're all like, yay, it's so cheap. No, once the vaccine's rolled out completely, I think it's gonna go back up. But we still pay less compared to other states. Like California, they're paying $3 something a gallon, $3.50 a gallon, easily. But yeah, it has been nice to be able to fuel up and just be like, this is so cheap. Yay. Okay. In terms of some of the energy politics we've seen here in Texas, they did pass a law that exempted businesses from paying the franchise tax for a couple of years at least if they add solar or wind power. So that's a pretty good incentive. You know, if you're a major city, if you're a business in Austin, why not? And we've seen issues with the state's electricity supply. We saw this happen in 2011. A major cold spell meant that electric plants failed, and people were losing power for days. So what they started doing to try and keep people from losing power for days and days was what's called a rolling blackout. So they would say the east side of San Antonio isn't going to have power for 6 hours. The next day it's the west side of San Antonio. So it did prevent a mass prolonged blackout. But a man in Houston died because he didn't have access to his oxygen tank during the shutdown. Yeah, which is something you don't necessarily think about until your power goes out. So you don't want that happening. You do not want this problem. And the problem was largely because when the utility companies were deregulated in 1999, companies got rid of their excess capacity for backup purposes so they could lower prices. So they didn't have the extra electricity needed during this blackout period. So for us, it's a good thing because we can choose between providers and we can choose our electricity rate. It's bad in terms of supply because they want to keep it as cheap as possible, but that comes at a cost down the road. And I gotta say, this is the first state I've lived in where I've had a choice of providers. In Florida, it's all Florida Power and Light. You have no choice. You just get connected. So when I was looking at moving here, I was like, wait, what? I have a choice? I was like, how the hell do you choose? So I'd ask friends, I was just like, guys, what do I pick? How do I pick? So it's pretty unusual. Most states, it's one state provider and you call them up, you pay a deposit, and you get your electricity, and that's it. And we do have, of course, the differences and arguments between conservative and liberals. Conservatives will say, okay, look, let the market decide supply and price, because this will benefit consumers in the end, right? Supply and demand, consumers get to pick how much they pay, how much they need, and so on. Liberal arguments say, look, we've got a lot of problems that aren't being handled, and only government regulation can solve the problems. We can't have another issue like we did in the winter of 2011. We have got to find a way to keep that from happening again. So they go back and forth, and so far the conservative argument's been winning out. Okay, so it was just announced today that 2020 was the hottest year on record. Also, one of the worst in terms of hurricanes because we actually ran out of names for hurricanes halfway through the season and had to go to the Greek letters. So pretty bad year for the environment. So there are about 9.5 million people who belong to organizations like the Sierra Club, Greenpeace, the Environmental Defense Fund, and other organizations. And if you polled people about hypotheticals, they're like, sure, why not have better fuel efficiency? Why not switch to solar or wind? Sure, I'll buy a calendar to help an organization. I'll make sure I'm recycling my plastics. I'll try to carpool with a friend, right? When it's easy steps, people are very likely to support it. Walk 2 feet, toss something into a recycle bin. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. The problem, though, is when the cost and inconvenience go up, there's less support for it. Wesco is terrible about recycling. Where I live, there is no recycling bin in my complex, which makes absolutely no sense. So it becomes inconvenient for most people to hold onto their recyclables and take it somewhere. So they just toss them out. I mean, I'm willing to hold on to them and take them to be recycled, but for most people, that's just not something they want to do. So when it becomes inconvenient, there's less support for it. Sure, let's invest in solar energy. Oh, my property taxes have to go up? You know what? I'm okay with the system as it is. I'm not so sure I like this. The other problem is the acronym "Not in My Backyard." Not in my backyard is basically when people say, okay, sure, that needs to be built, just don't build it here. Don't put windmills in my neighborhood. Don't build the prison down the street from where I live. Put it over there. Just don't put it near me, right? Nobody wants a prison in their backyard, but it has to be built somewhere, right? And it's funny because, like, in Massachusetts, for example, there's windmills off of Martha's Vineyard. But the wealthy people who live there are like, but it's blocking my view of the beach. I don't want them here. And you're just like, well, it has to be built somewhere. I mean, where do you want this to go? So it becomes a problem is people are like, I just don't want it here. Just build it somewhere else. And then the next neighborhood is like, I don't want it here. Build it somewhere else. And then on down the line. Which is why you tend to see, unfortunately, in poorer neighborhoods, you'll see the bail bond companies and things like that, because they just don't have as much of an ability to say, you can't bring that here. So people are like, sure, you can build windmills. Oh, but not along my beach. No. Move it along. Move it along. I'll give you a kind of funny personal example from when I grew up. So I grew up outside Springfield, Illinois, and they were looking at building a new Walmart in a fairly nice neighborhood. And the neighbors were outraged. It's going to bring in all this traffic. It's going to lower property values. We don't want it here. And then they were looking at the ground of where they're going to build a Walmart. And it used to be a gun shooting club. So the ground was contaminated with lead anyway, and they couldn't build it there. But the screaming from the people in the neighborhood about, don't you dare build a Walmart here. It's kind of funny. I'm not going to lie, it's kind of funny. Had its moments. Okay. There is some environmental protection, but it's difficult to fund projects because we don't want to pay more in taxes. You want more environmental protections, you have to raise business taxes. If you raise business taxes, you get a little less business moving to Texas. So very, very begrudgingly will the state actually fund a project. Now, this doesn't apply to federal policies. The Clean Air and the Clean Water Act means Texas gets money from the federal government for that. So for that, they're like, sure, we'll spend federal money, but we're not raising taxes. And in some ways, Texas was ahead of the curve. In the 1930s, the Railroad Commission actually passed some rules to limit the water and land pollution from the oil and gas industries. So we had some of the first environmental protections of any state. So kudos, right? We actually did the right thing in the 1930s. Ahead of the game in a lot of ways, so well done. There is also a Clean Water Standards created in 1945, ahead of the Clean Air and Water Act, which were in 1970. And they did an air quality study in 1951. So again, Texas was ahead of the curve nationally. Texas was willing to look at issues created by our large oil and gas industries, the major refineries, and so on. And there is the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or the TCEQ, which is in charge of managing the air, water, and waste programs, as well as protecting the state environment. So keeping an eye on state parks, making sure that the refineries aren't dumping waste into the water, and so on. They could do a better job of regulating water quality, but that's a whole different thing. Part of the problem, though, is the role of lobbyists and business and private interests that inevitably will get involved in the environment. Businesses are more successful in creating low environmental regulations. Things like the rule of capture give private interests an advantage over public interests. So the rule of capture basically says if it's under your land, it's yours. So if it's under your land in terms of water, oil, or minerals, it belongs to you, not the state. So you can do with it whatever you want. The other problem is that there is a bit of a revolving door. People who used to work for the state join interest groups. Interest groups like to hire former state workers. They know the personnel. They know the rules. they still have access to certain places, certain people. So you get a former state senator who loses election, an oil company is going to want to pay them $100,000 a year to go lobby for them. Why not? And it becomes problematic when we look at things like overruling state scientists. There was a permit application for nuclear disposal sites in Texas that went to the Radioactive Materials Division of the TCEQ. The scientists in that division said, don't give the company a permit because this could be a threat to groundwater, could potentially contaminate groundwater. TCEQ ignored the recommendations, issued the permit, and 3 scientists resigned in protest. They said, look, we warned you this was going to be a problem, and you basically said, thank you very much, now get out of here. So they got a little bit ticked off, understandably. Nuclear waste, again, takes about 10,000 years for the nuclear rods to become non-radioactive. So you don't want that leaking into the groundwater. But they didn't seem to be too concerned about that. And then the head of the TCEQ became the head of the company that owned the nuclear waste site in 2009 and started making a little over $100,000 a year. So you gotta wonder if they gave him a promise in exchange for him approving the permit, which of course is technically illegal, but good luck proving that. Okay, so what are some of the environmental issues we're looking at here? Most Texas cities, including Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, and El Paso, all have very poor air quality levels, very high levels of air pollutants. I don't think that comes as much of a shock to anyone. We also, unfortunately, rank second in the nation in the level of toxic discharge in our rivers and our highly polluted state waterways. The river walk in San Antonio is pretty, but I wouldn't go into that water for love or money, right? Yeah, no, yeah, you would not want to go in there.
Not even though one of the
Yeah. Yeah. Also, occasionally they will drag that river along the river walk, and for some reason they keep finding scooters that end up in the river. Like people get drunk or something, or who knows, but like skateboards or bicycles, all sorts of weird shit, yeah. Like, it's pretty, you just don't go and, yeah, you can do the boat tour, but don't go into the water. The Brazos River has the highest lead discharges in the country. High levels of reproductive toxins like estrogen, which is problematic in a couple of ways. One, men then ingest the estrogen, which is bad for them. Women end up with higher levels of estrogen, which can cause breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and so on. There's cancer-causing chemicals in the water, and developmental toxins. So you drink that water, your kid could have developmental problems. So again, don't drink the water. Yeah, it's bad. Right? We don't need these problems, but we unfortunately have them. If I remember correctly, there are also high levels of testosterone in the water, so it's really just not going to be good for people, no matter how you slice it. Now, there was some money put into clean air and water after 2013. We still got a lot of work to do before we could actually trust the water in our rivers, even a little. All right, transportation. I know. Texas has a big problem with car accidents. There were over 3,400 fatal accidents in Texas in 2018, and about 79,000 car accidents. Around 40,000 people are killed in car accidents annually. Part of the reason we have such a high fatality rate is the high speed limit. If the speed limit is 70 to 80 miles an hour, you're not going to be able to stop if someone ahead of you decides to slam on the brakes. The odds of surviving an accident when you're both going 80 miles an hour, not great. You're not exactly going to be in good shape. We'll come back to this in a minute, but I want to show you guys. Now, how do I do this? Yeah, screen. There we go. Okay. I think show you guys this. I mean, so that's what my car looked like after the accident. In case you were curious what the hell happened. Yeah. And I was going 55 miles an hour. Yeah. It's bad, right? People just don't drive very safely in Texas, and the high speed limits are not conducive to someone walking away from an accident. We do have a little over 80,000 miles of pavement in Texas. It's a big state, right? There's a lot of different roads. We've got the interstate, we've got secondary roads, we've got the farm to market roads, we've got all these back ways you can go. I mean, there's a huge stretch between here and San Antonio that's technically highway, but isn't really like a highway, right? Because it's only 2-lane roads, and they're expanding it finally, but it's like, how do you call this a highway if it's basically a 2-lane secondary road? It's not really a highway. There's a little over 22 million cars in Texas. Houston is the 6th most traffic congested city in the United States. And I mean, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio are all going to have huge problems with traffic congestion. You're going to be sitting in traffic for a while. So one of the things we could do to help with congestion is to build more toll roads, especially around the cities. People who would regularly come into the cities can get a toll pass, and that would clear up some of the people who are just passing through the cities. There's about 87 miles of toll roads in Texas. People don't like them, they don't like paying tolls, but it is a way to clear up some of the congestion. Because again, if you're a regular commuter to downtown San Antonio, you could hop on the toll road, get a monthly pass, and just go. You do. And it would help because people are just kind of passing through and not regularly going into the city, could then take the regular highway and you could just hop onto the toll road. Also, it would help if we built more carpool-only lanes on the sections of highway leading into the cities. In Los Angeles, they have Pretty much on every road, there's at least one carpool only lane, and that helps convince people to carpool and get there a bit quicker. So we could look at that, maybe. And I know there was a fatal accident outside of Houston around Thanksgiving that killed a family that was from San Benito. So it's pretty bad. Okay. The current fuel economy standards are at an average of 27.5 miles per gallon. That's not great. We should be looking at increasing standards. So the standards for a car model year 2021 or newer are set at an average of 40.3 miles per gallon. That could do a lot of good, especially if you're someone who's regularly commuting in and out of the city. More fuel efficiency is definitely something we could use. So seatbelts became required in all cars in 1983, and airbags became mandatory in 1994. These are life-saving features. I was wearing my seatbelt. I got to walk away. Probably wouldn't have if I hadn't been wearing my seatbelt. And yes, I have a very nasty burn from the airbag, but at least the airbag properly deployed. It could have been a lot worse. So these safety features do save people's lives. They are something that we all need to be using. And that's why there are seatbelt laws, to help keep the fatality rate down. It's why you can get a ticket if you're not wearing a seatbelt. 15 states offer a rebate if you purchase a more fuel-efficient car. Texas does not yet, emphasis on yet. In all likelihood, in the next legislative session, that will probably be something they look at. It would definitely be helpful to say, get $2,000 off a car that is a hybrid or more fuel efficient. Could really help people buy those cars. Again, it is mandatory to wear a seatbelt. You can get a ticket if you are not wearing your seatbelt. That's a fairly recent thing. It's only been within the last 7-8 years that we've really seen that on the national level. Also, of course, it's now illegal to text and drive. You cannot be looking at your phone and be looking at the road. It's not going to work. And here in Texas, we do have a yearly car inspection. They're not looking at fuel efficiency, but they are checking to make sure your brakes are working, your horn, your lights, right? And that makes sense, right? You want to make sure your car is safe. And it is a moneymaker for the state. So $7 you pay every year helps with road improvements and so on. So not prohibitively expensive to get it done. And again, the use of carpool lanes could help out. If you've got two workers from the same office who live in the same neighborhood, why not carpool, right? And reward them by creating a carpool only lane where they can just zip around the traffic. Works in LA for the most part. So one way to encourage carpooling. And for the love of everything holy, can we please invest in mass transit? Pretty, please. Good God. Okay, sorry, had to get that off my chest. It drives me freaking nuts. If we had a good light rail system, subways, monorail, streetcars, one person using light rail instead of driving for a year reduces carbon monoxide emissions by 62.5 pounds. Imagine if you got 10,000 people to do that. It also reduces road congestion. You don't have as many cars on the road. There is some rail transit in Dallas, Houston, and Austin. About 40,000 people in Houston use the light rail system every day. I have lived in a city that had mass transit, and it really did cut down on congestion. And think about how much easier the commute would be if you're living in a suburb of Boston, you hop on a train, and you just go get off work at downtown and walk, right? You could read, you could relax, you wouldn't have to drive everywhere. It would just save people a ton of hassle. San Antonio uses a bus system. They're going to have to look at a rail transit in the next couple of years. The city keeps growing, a bus system's not going to be good enough. It's decent, but they really need to invest in light rail, commuter trains, things like that. Now, part of the problem with light rail is lower than expected ridership, cost overruns, and so on. But we are spread out in Texas. In New York City, they've got 8.2 million riders per mile. Houston's got 2.1 million. If you're living in a condensed city, Boston, New York, Chicago, DC, then you've got a lot more people to use mass transit. Because we're so spread out here, you just don't have as many consumers. They're also not going into the suburbs. They need to be setting up a rail system that goes from suburbs to city. And until they do that, people who live in the suburbs are not going to be taking mass transit. It just doesn't exist where they are. So we need better mass transit. We need a train that goes from the outer suburb of Boston all the way downtown. And the bigger the cities get, the more need there will be for mass transit. Because there's more people using the roads, and it's going to reach the point where people are just going to be like, I cannot deal with this anymore. And think about how nice it would be if we had a train that ran from Brownsville through McAllen, right? You hop on a train, you get to McAllen, you're done. You don't have to drive here. How nice would that be? Or a bus system that will take you to the airports in the area. Hop on a bus in Wesco, get to the Harlingen Airport. Would save us a lot of hassle if we had something like that. Hell, I'd even settle for a direct bus from our campus to the main campus at this point. I mean, something. So, Texas is going to have to look at these issues. The bigger the population, the bigger the cities, the more traffic, the more congestion, the more problems we're going to have. So we need to invest in commuter rail, light rail, more reliable bus routes, things like that are going to have to be invested in. So that's something Texas is just going to have to deal with. And it would get our fatality rate down if we had less people on the road. So eventually it's something we're just going to have to do. Okay, any comments, questions? Have any of you lived in another city here in Texas? No? Okay. Yeah, I gotta admit, I got spoiled in Boston, being able to just hop on a train and hop off. Oh, that was nice.
I don't know how to send their school bus.
I mean, there's like, in Boston, there's the red line, the green line, the orange line, the blue line, and then a whole bunch of commuter trains, plus buses. So I used to live in East Boston, and I would walk like 2 or 3 blocks, hop on a train, go 2 or 3 stops, switch lines, and then get on the bus and go to the campus that I worked at. It was so freaking convenient. Like, you don't have to have a car, you don't have to worry about parking, you don't have to worry about, yeah. Just buy a monthly pass, hop on, and here's some guy going, destination of this train is in a Boston accent. Yeah, it was nice, I'm not gonna lie. Got cold waiting for the buses sometimes, but damn, it was nice just to be able to get on the train and be done with it. And in DC, they actually have a train that goes straight to the airport, to Ronald Reagan Airport, where you can just get off the train and then head straight into the airport. They do the same thing in Chicago for O'Hare Airport. There's literally, they call it the L there, where you can just hop on the train at O'Hare Airport and head downtown. I miss it. Okay. This was the last day of class. Next week is finals, like I said. We'll meet at our usual time. I'll show you guys a documentary about the border. We'll have a brief conversation and we'll be done. If you can't make it next Wednesday, no problem. I understand you have other finals, other projects. It's not a problem if you're like, I need to just skip out. So make sure you turn in your final by 11:59 p.m. next Wednesday. If Blackboard is not working for some reason, let me know. That way I can just kind of check it. I did put Safe Assign on the final. So you get 2 attempts to upload it. So if you upload the wrong file, or you're looking at it and you go, oh, I forgot to cite something, you can resubmit the exam. And you can also see your Safe Assign score for the exam. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions online? Yes, Evelyn.
Will you be posting the final online on the Blackboard? Hello?
Sorry, Evelyn, we couldn't hear you. Did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was asking if you were going to be posting the final on Blackboard.
It's already posted.
Oh.
If you scroll down through the content, you can see the final exam there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, no. Okay, let me see if I can show you guys. Yeah, let me just, okay, let me go back. Let me go back. I don't know. I don't. Okay, yeah. Whoops. Okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Right here. It's at the very bottom. That's where the funnel is. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If you do have other questions, you can of course email me or call or text my cell phone. You do not have to be online on Monday since we're just doing the same thing on Wednesday we'll do on Monday. So you have Monday off essentially. So I'll see you guys in person next Wednesday. If those of you online, you do not have to attend online next Wednesday because again, we're just watching a documentary. So you don't have to be online if you can only be online. Okay, I think that's it for today.